Hi guys, it's so good to be back with you again. Today we are going to work on this beautiful landscape card inspired by a Kleenex brand tissue box. But I loved the colors, I loved the concept, the skills I thought were fun to practice. So we have the gradient in the sky. Here, there's a couple of techniques to make that natural and easy to do. And then also this layering of light to medium to dark to really dark on these hills or caricature mountains is another really fun thing to practice. And then also, of course, adding the splatter and the silver highlights and using the gel pen. It's definitely a multimedia card, and I can't wait to show you how to achieve this beautiful look. So let's get started. All right, so let's go over some of our supplies. We have a flat brush to create our gradient, to do our wash for our gradient. We have a size 8 round brush for our hills. We have a size 2 round brush for our trees and other small details that we're going to put into the hills, as well as our snow effects and all of that. We have this is a Uniball Signo white gel pen basically, and we're going to use this to create some detail for the snow as well. And then also a little bit of glitter sparkle. This is a Jelly Roll silver metallic pen, and so we're going to use this to kind of create a little bit of sparkle on our stars and on our snow, just to kind of help it pop and stand out. And then also gouache, our favorite friend for winter cards and snowy scenes. You can use just the gel pen if you don't have the gouache. You could even get abstract and creative and do blues with it, shades of blues. I haven't tried that, but that might be interesting. All right, so here I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of Strathmore watercolor paper, and I have it taped down. This is just probably the back of a board of watercolor. Once I finish with the paper, I just keep the board for things like this, because we're going to get this whole piece wet in order to do our gradient. So the colors that we will be using today, for the sky, it's a mixture of light blue and ultramarine blue. And then for the hills, it's going to be a mixture of Veridian and Cerulean blue. And these are my Mungyo 48 pan set. These are from those. So you can use any variation that you want of these 4 colors. So if you wanted to change up the color of the sky to have some of the green in it, it's up to you. And that's another reason why I love this card. It uses these main 4 colors and then allows you to just kind of mix and match however you want to. So if you wanted to do this in shades of purple, that would be beautiful. Pinks and blues, creating purples would be really pretty, especially for a sky scene. So I'm just wetting my paper here, and my water is a little blue, but that's okay because we're working all in these shades. So I've got it pretty wet, and now I'm going to dab in my mixture of light blue. I just need a really light wash of this, so it doesn't take much, because I want this to be, I don't want to say the lightest part of the painting, but I don't want it to stand out. I want the hills to be the objects that are really showy. So now I'm going to take some water just to kind of help nuzzle these colors down. And this is how we create our gradient, is by starting dark at the top, taking it down to the point that you want, and then adding some water to your brush, and then dragging it down in a sideways motion down to the bottom. Now, we're not going to see the bottom. It's going to be covered with the hills, but it is going to be easier, I think, to create the look of the gradient and have it be cohesive if you do treat it like you're going to see it. So here I'm just adding some more color to the top, because I do want it to be like a winter sky. You know, we're going to add some stars, so it's not going to be like a night sky, but we do want to have the splatter of the snow that we create pop, and the silver. So having this be a little darker will help do that. I'm going to add a little water to my brush to help it go down. Okay, that looks really pretty. I like that light color, and it always dries lighter, so it's tricky. So I might play just a tad bit with creating some lines, somewhat clouds, just to kind of give it a little bit of visual interest up here. So it looks like a sunny winter day. Okay, I love that. That looks nice. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry and then we will come back to paint our hills. And we are going to move on to our first hill. And I'm going to do a still light wash of our light blue and our ultramarine, but I'm gonna do a little bit more ultramarine, and I'm going to dilute it quite a bit because I want this hill to be the lightest hill that we have. And then we're going to work our way down. And don't worry if you mix too much because we are going to use this again later. In fact, I think I'm just going to mix a really light version in here. And then I always have a piece of paper that I test off to the edge to be able to test my color. Okay. So we are going to start basically about halfway. The hills are going to begin there. I'm going to do a little one with a little tail, a little second hill down here. And when doing these light patterns like this, the important thing is the line here, because you're going to do this swoop line and you don't want to see a line of where you ended or began your watercolor. So you want to make this be cohesive and all the way down like our gradient. And I added a little bit of water to my brush just to help move it down. We're not going to see this bottom part, so if it's a little splotchy, no big deal. We just want to make sure that this is the section we're worried about. Okay, I'm going to go back over this again with my brush just to kind of darken it up. Use up all my paint. Okay, I think that's pretty. I'm going to try and make a little, there we go, softer of a curve there. Okay, and try and straighten that out if I can. Now I like the visual interest of this hard edge, so if you wind up, it's kind of starting to form here. I like that. I think in this painting it's adding something because you have such a light color down here and you're going to have dark colors mixing throughout the piece, so it gives it some dimension, I think. Okay. All right, so we're going to let this layer dry and then we're going to move on to a darker version with a little more green. Okay, so our first set of hills are dry and I'm going to try and add a little bit of Veridian to this to see what color I get. And this one I want to be the next shade darker. So again, I'm going to test it up here. Okay, that looks nice. Let me get a piece of paper to test it on for y'all. Still a little blue, but it's darker. So this one is less hill, more of kind of like a break, you know, so it's almost going to be like a wave, you know, just kind of a slight little nod. Just something like that. Okay, and we want to be conscientious of that line we just laid down. Then this one. So. Oh, see, oh, we wound up with the line. So tricky. Okay. And again, don't have to mess as much with the bottom. That looks really pretty. All right, so our second hill layer is done, and now we're gonna go really dark and do mixture of the cerulean blue and the Veridian, a little more on the blue side. It still has some green in it, but we're gonna do this one more on the green side. So these are pretty much like the same consistency, the same amount of water to paint, but this one's gonna have a little bit more green. So this hill, I'd like it to be, I think, kind of dramatic. And you can overlap these if you want. I don't think I'm going to. I think I might come more down here. Just do something like that. And the interesting thing about this card is that each time, because I mix the colors, so each time I make it, the hills turn out a different color. And so the scene, it just changes. So this one is more on the blue side than some of the other ones that I've done. And I like it. It's definitely more wintry. All right, so now we're gonna let this one dry. We're gonna come in with a darker layer here, and I might try and kind of go up a little because I want to put some trees in this corner, and so I want them to kind of stand up on some of this lighter blue, but we'll see. All right, so our third layer is finished, and now we're moving on to our fourth and final hill layer, and we are going to use this dark green, and I think I might mimic, maybe in a less dramatic way. I think I'm gonna try and do, nope, I wound up doing the same thing. I was gonna try and do my peaks and valleys in different spots, but you know, your hand just sometimes wants to go in the same spots. All right. Might try and add a little bit of green to this while it's still wet. Just to try and make it a little bit darker. But yeah, I think that's nice. Looking good. So we're gonna let this layer dry, and then we'll move on to our trees. Okay, so our bottom layer is still a little bit wet, but I think we can move on to mixing the colors for our trees and putting in some of the trees in the upper hills area. So I'm gonna start with this original color, which was the light blue and ultramarine. It was this hill color. So I'm going to dilute this even more, and we probably really don't even need very much because we're just gonna do a couple of trees, and we want them to be very faint, very blended, not sharp. We want them to look like they're in the background, and as the trees get closer to the foreground, they will get more detailed. This technique is, you can do it a couple of ways. One is to just create a line for your trunk. Clean off your brush and just take this paint that's from the trunk and use it to make your tree. So these trees that I'm making are kind of like little cartoony trees. They are symmetrical and the tips of them kind of curve up, and they're definitely different than the trees that we've worked on in the past. And this one, because they're not supposed to be detail oriented and they're supposed to be a little, far away in the distance, you can kind of go in between the branches and put out some secondary branches in there, just to kind of make it look a little less sharp. All right, so we're going to do another one with that same technique. So we're going to, a little shorter one. So we're going to start with our trunk. Clean off our brush. And we're going to use those U-shape motions to make our branches, using that paint that's in the middle for the stem. If it gets a little too faint, you can just add a little bit more color because it's already wet, so you can just kind of dampen the color. And like I said, these don't have to be perfect, so if you get out of the lines, that is even better. So these are very light, very vague, but you definitely know that they're trees. So we're going to do a couple of those at the top. Then we're going to come down in this little crook right here, and we're going to do a handful more, and we're going to do them a little darker. So we're going to do the same technique. This is the blue, the same light blue and ultramarine that we used here. We just did not dilute it. I think I'm going to start right here in the middle and make this one a tall one. And let's do the same technique. Well, these are a little sharper, so we're not going to clean off our brush, but we're just going to do our little U-shape branches. And they're going to get bigger and longer as we go out. And then if you wanted to, you could do some fillers in here. But these are going to be covered in our gouache and our glitter pen. So you can do what you want here because all that's going to be covered up. It's going to be layered on. So these little mistakes and unrealistic limbs aren't going to matter. But this is kind of a caricature of a hill scene, so I wanted the trees to resemble that. So we've made a short tree, but this one I think it's going to go under the horizon, so we're not going to see the bottom of it. And then we can do another even shorter one here. That again is just going to go underneath. Okay, that looks nice. And then I think we're going to do, you can even, the possibilities are endless. You can even go back behind here and do one. Fill it in. I think I'm just going to do one little one here, just to kind of even it out. And we're not going to get to see all of it either. It's going to be hidden away. Okay, that looks great. So now we're going to do the same thing down here on this very last hill with a really dark color. So we are going to have to put our trees basically on top of this color. We might get a little bit up in here. So I think if we use this color, then we should be fine. So I'm going to start with that and see how it looks. I'm going to keep, this is kind of a low spot, so I'm going to see if I can make a tree here. And we're not damping off our brush, but we are continuing with these cactus arms, or kind of upgraded limbs. And this one we don't see the bottom of either. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like how that's looking. That's very nice. Okay, I'm going to do another one peeking behind, kind of blending in. Okay. And then I think we'll do just one more. And we'll do this one the tallest, but still kind of next to this middle one. I'm going to go over this one again just to make it a little darker because it's already dry. Might have to do that with all of them. Alright, so one of the other things I like to do is create these kind of like snowbank lines, like these, in these two layers, just to kind of give it a little bit of depth. I think it does. So let's do, I've taken a light wash of our middle darkest hill and watered it down pretty well. I think I'm going to create a line here. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to put this over, put gel pen and glitter and stuff over this one too. So it probably would be more realistic if it was a little broken anyway. And then I'm going to put one right here. Make this one a little thicker because it kind of blends in a little bit. Okay. I'm going to make this one a little thicker too. I'm just playing around, you know, this is kind of the fun part, doing these details. Alright, I think that adds a lot to it already. I'm loving that. Alright, so now we're pretty dry up here, definitely. So we are going to move on to our gouache. And I think with this one, you know, you can try and do like a light wash of gouache, medium, and then dark, but I don't know. I think that's hard for me to do personally. And the light is so light that it might as well not be there. You know, light gouache is pretty transparent. So now I'm just trying to get all the blue off of my size 2. And with the gouache, I like to have some that's real loose and easy like to splatter, and just some that is going to be pretty translucent. And then I also like to keep a clump of it for a more opaque application. So I'm going to take just a little bit of it on my brush, and I'm going to start to add my snow to these trees. And because these trees are so faint, you know, you don't want to just paint on the gouache, because then it's just going to look like gouache. The tree won't be there. So you want to have a very light amount on your brush, and you want to just stipple. And you want to try and stipple like you do on most trees, where you're doing kind of the top of the branch, you know, to create that, help you to create the shape of the tree, since there's not much of it there with these faint trees. So I'm just stippling and keeping it to the tops of the branches, and a little on the top if you want. Okay. And see how this is already drying pretty light. So we might come in again and put another application. We might not have to. So then from there, we're going to create, you know, a little snowy hilltop, little bank. And this you can get, you know, as intense as you want, as far as can come down wherever, but I like it just a little hint on top. All right, so now we're going to move to these trees. So these are a little darker, but I'm still going to try and be pretty gentle with my stippling and not let the gouache overpower the tree. So since this dried pretty light, I'm going to add another layer of the gouache, a little less water. I took it from this pile here. And I'm going to leave some of this fainter, it's a nice layering effect. So I'm going to leave some of this fainter white. And I think I kind of like the white being faint too, but I'm just going to add, since we have this kind of popping out, I'm just going to try and match the rest of it like that. And this is, this is drying a little light too, so I'm just going to come in and kind of go over this lightly. I liked this pattern, this snow pattern that I made here, so I'm going to just try and kind of highlight it. There we go. And see what that does. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to these darker trees and just do the stippling. And see down in here, it's so, you know, dark, it's hard to see the tree. So you just kind of, you know, let the gouache create that for you. And not worry about it. Okay. All right. Create our little snowbank here. With these darker colors, the white really picks up that pigment. So you have to be careful. So we'll let this dry and see if we need some more. But in the meantime, we're going to do our splatter. So the key to splatter is water. It's a lot easier and you get more effect with more water. So one way I like to do it is to load my brush up, swirl it in the water, and then splatter. And this little number 2 makes the really nice small snowflakes, because even the big ones are pretty small too, and they're going to dry pretty faint because we did use so much water. Okay, and then if you wanted, you could come in with your size 8 and do some size 8 splatter too. So again, we get a good amount of gouache and water on our paint. On our brush. We dip it in and we splatter. And this gives you bigger ones, which is nice. It's nice to have the small ones and the little ones. Okay, and if you get some snow in here, that is okay. It's supposed to be everywhere. See, like that one right there will probably dry pretty translucent, but we shall see. Okay, so I can see a little bit of the blue through here. So I'm going to see if I can't cover that up if it's not dry enough, if it is dry enough yet for me to do another layer. And just like this one, you know, I just kind of want to highlight. I don't have to cover it totally, you know. Just wanted to make a mention of it being more white. I'm going to come in here and add a little bit more gouache to these, just a tad. I like how the trees look. They did really well. Okay. All right. That looks awesome. We are going to, I think we can do it. I think we can use our gel pen on our little breaks here. So what you're going to do is, you can do it a couple ways. You can do it from the side, which helps to create those broken lines like this. Or you can do it from the front and just kind of do it from the top and just kind of make your own broken lines. But this is going to mimic, you know, the basically snow that's kind of fallen and accumulated here on these, in these little breaks. And the parts that are broken, that's where we're going to come in and add our glitter and give it that pretty shine. And it's the same, you know, you can do it from the side to just kind of make it its own break, you know, easy to kind of make those broken lines, or you can do it from the front, do it from the top. A lot of these pens are kind of hard to use on watercolor paper, so a lot of times they will do that naturally on their own. Okay, that's beautiful. I'm gonna let these splatter snowflakes dry, and then I'm gonna add some stars and some silver snow and some detail onto the mounds and the trees, the silver detail on those. So let this dry and then we'll come back and do that. All right, so we are pretty much dry. We still have this big one here that hasn't quite dried, but a few little ones, but I think we can move on. So for the stars, what I like to do is like just a 5 point, and then just kind of in the 4 points, draw it out like that. And then I think I'm going to do another one, maybe a small one here, smaller one. And when you do them smaller, the 5 point doesn't have to be as, it can just be a circle if you want it to be. Okay, and then I think I'm going to do one in this corner up here. Okay, and then I think that's it for the gel pen. And then for the sparkle, I'm going to come in and highlight the snowbanks and the trees. And this you don't have to even worry at all. I mean, it's just going to be like a nice little addition. You don't even need to worry about placement or anything. Just kind of haphazardly sprinkle it on there. There we go. Now I'm going to add some little silver dots in the sky. Kind of small ones. I'm going to put one down here. Okay, and then I'm going to do some bigger ones. And And then I'm going to add a dot to the center of the stars. I'm going to outline the 4 points. You can do them in any direction you want. There we go. You can elongate them if you want. Oh, that's gorgeous. I am loving that. All that's left to do is sign the bottom. I'm going to do it here on the white. And for the reveal, the easiest way that I found to remove the tape without tearing the paper is to bring your tape to a 90-degree angle and pull it off to the side instead of pulling it down. You want to pull it to the side like that. All right, so there we have a beautiful winter landscape holiday card, and I wanted to thank you for tuning in, and I love sharing this with you, and I hope you enjoy. Happy holidays. Thank you. Bye.